To protect my cousin, Mom identified me as an undercover agent in front of the underground organization. I was imprisoned and tortured for 5 days, my lower body completely ruined, destined to live with a urine bag for the rest of my life. Jane Irwin rescued me. She didn't mind my ruined body and even promised me a lifetime together. But shortly before the wedding, I saw her and Mom accompanying cousin in the next room through the surveillance camera. Mom laughed. "Jane, you're so smart, knowing how to set up a scheme to ruin his legs. If he continued to be a cop, how could we get such a good kidney donor for Liam Porter?" Jane Irwin smiled sarcastically. "That cripple really thought I was going to marry him. He's arranged everything for us." What a daydreamer! I clutched my empty left kidney, filled with despair. It turned out she didn't have kidney failure at all. The wedding was planned to humiliate me. I threw away the wedding ring and decided to join Professor Bell's profiling unit, going to the US for 10 years of intensive training. On the wedding day, I disappeared completely. 10 years later, my profile depicted the killer Jane Irwin. She wore handcuffs, her eyes red, and handed me the wedding ring. "Are you still willing?" After the kidney transplant, I found my wedding ring was missing, and immediately pulled out the 4-drip and ran to the surveillance room. But I didn't expect the truth to hit me hard in the face. Inside room 506, Jane Irwin was spooning chicken soup, and Mom was wiping cousin's body. The 3 of them looked like a family. Mom laughed. "Jane, you're so smart, knowing how to set up a scheme to ruin his legs. If he continued to be a cop, working all night to solve cases, how could we get such a good kidney donor for Liam? The people you found did it just right, ruining his legs so he can't leave you, but without damaging his internal organs. Jane, I wasn't wrong about you as my daughter-in-law. You're really smart and bold." Jane Irwin fed the chicken soup to cousin. She smiled sarcastically. "That cripple really thought I was going to marry him. He's arranged everything for us. I'll make the most of him for these 3 days, and then completely crush his beautiful dream at the wedding. Liam, you just had surgery, so you must take care of your body. Don't worry about the wedding, that idiot will arrange everything for us. I've also prepared your suit according to your size, the most expensive custom-tailored one." Jane Irwin reached out to wipe the oil from the corner of his mouth, but he grabbed her wrist. Liam squinted at her, his face full of desire. She also unhesitatingly kissed him. Mom joked with the 2 of them, while quickly walking out of the room. Oh my, you 2 are getting married soon. It's inevitable to be intimate. I won't watch." The 2 blushed and kissed passionately. As the atmosphere heated up further, Mom came back looking angry. She discovered that I wasn't in the next room. "That damned guy, even with broken legs, he still runs around. He just had surgery, and his body is still recovering. His resistance is so poor. What if a virus invades his body? How will Liam be treated in the future? What a good calculation, preferring to harm himself rather than wanting Liam to be well. So vicious." I looked at her distorted face as she cursed me, my heart aching. Other people's moms would worry about their children's health, but she would only ever worry about whether I could extend cousin's life. Jane Irwin immediately pulled away from her desire upon hearing this, and frowned. "In order to prevent him from running into Liam, I specifically told him not to leave the room. Joe Anson always listens to me. It's impossible for him to run around. Something must have happened. I'll go look for him." After saying that, she hurried out. Cousin bit his lower lip upon seeing this. Mom exclaimed, "Blood? Liam, why are you bleeding again?" Jane Ir. Wynne quickly stopped and turned back to check on his condition. Her expression was full of heartache. "Liam, how are you feeling now? Are you dizzy? I'll go get the director right away." Liam grabbed her sleeve, tears glistening in his eyes. "No, I just want you to be with me. Aunt, and you too must always be with me." Jane Irwin was stunned, her expression revealing a gentleness I had never seen before. She gently kissed Liam's forehead. "I won't leave. I will be with you for the rest of my life." Mom was also moved to tears. "I already regard you as my own son." A few more drops of blood fell. Jane Irwin's pupils contracted, and she decisively said, "Liam, hang in there. I'll get Joe Anson to give you a blood transfusion right now." Looking at everything in the surveillance footage, I felt my heart suffocated by a black plastic bag. My own mom recognized someone else as her son. My own fiancée had already promised herself to another. The day Jane Irwin rescued me from the underground organization's basement, I was hung from a pipe, my body fractured all over, and my legs were festering with maggots. Because of my crippled lower body, bidding farewell to my dream of being a cop, I wanted to commit suicide several times. It was she who took care of me day and night, personally stewing chicken soup and tonics, gradually nurturing my body and soul. I regarded her as my savior, loving her wholeheartedly. So when Jane Irwin mentioned needing a kidney transplant, I donated my left kidney without hesitation. But I never expected that the person who saved my life, the person who accompanied and encouraged me, the person who pulled me out of the swamp of desperately seeking familial affection, was actually the mastermind of everything. She had painstakingly cultivated me for so many years, nurturing my crippled body, just to make me cousin's medicine. I clutched my empty left abdomen, laughing in despair. Large tears of blood streamed from the corners of my eyes. But before I could process my emotions, Jane Irwin's phone call came. Her voice was urgent. "Joe, where are you? I'm hemorrhaging badly. I need a blood transfusion. Come to the second-floor blood transfusion room now, quickly." I was silent for 5 seconds, during which Jane Irwin urged me 4 times. "Before the wedding, you said you would do anything for me. Have you forgotten? Hurry up. I really can't live without blood." I smiled weakly, and said in a hoarse voice, "Okay." I struggled to lift myself from the wheelchair and lay down on the blood transfusion bed. Jane Irwin and the nurses' voices were clearly audible at the door. "Use the thickest 4-drip, quickly. I need a blood source within 5 minutes." The nurse refused. "No, the patient just had surgery, and suddenly drawing so much blood will kill him." Jane Irwin anxiously snatched the blood transfusion bag from her hand. "He's very healthy, nothing will happen." "Someone urgently needs blood now. Not drawing it quickly will really kill them." "If you don't draw it, I'll do it myself." After saying that, she hurried in and shoved the thick needle into my wrist. I convulsed in pain, but she held me down, and quickly said, "That nurse is a newbie. I don't trust her. I'll operate on you personally. Don't move, or it will be crooked." The skin around the needle hole quickly swelled up. I stared blankly at her, feeling choked. She used the same words when she performed the nephrectomy on me, and as a result, the scar on my waist was crooked and terrifying, while Cousin's scar was perfect. She was only concerned about Cousin and had no intention of operating on me properly. The blood in my body was flowing out rapidly. I felt my heart and arteries beating faster and faster. I was about to go into shock. Jane Irwin looked anxious, completely unaware of my gradually whitening lips and purplish face. After getting the blood, she turned and left without giving me a glance. I used all my strength to bear. Squeeze out 2 words, "Help me." Jane Irwin suddenly stopped. She frowned and stared at me, her expression extremely annoyed. "Hey, it's just drawing some blood. Do you have to pretend to faint? You're not that weak, are you? Joe Anson, didn't you say before that you could give me your life? Now you're reluctant to give me so little blood? How ridiculous!" After saying that, she left without looking back. My head was throbbing, but I could only let my consciousness fade away. I didn't die. Professor Bell, a criminal profiling master who happened to pass by, saved me. He left a note, "Child, I regret your legs. You were supposed to be an excellent cop." Take care of your body. I thought my tears had already dried up in the surveillance room. But now, after seeing Professor Bell's words of concern, I couldn't help but cry out loud. A teacher I had only met a few times could save my life, but my own mom hated me to the core, and my fiancé designed to ruin my legs and take my kidney. Professor Bell had invited me to join the profiling unit many times. Although I was very passionate about criminal investigation, I gave it up without hesitation in order to be with Jane Irwin. Now, I picked up my phone and dialed the number. Professor Bell, I accept your profiling unit invitation. Joe, it's great that you've thought it through. I'm missing someone like you. With 10 years of intensive training with the FBI's top profilers, you'll be able to solve any case in the future. So we're leaving now? I closed my eyes in pain and clenched my phone. No, we'll leave in 3 days. Jane Irwin, you planned everything, but you didn't count on me disappearing completely at the wedding, did you? There are 3 days left until the wedding. Participating in the profiling unit requires canceling my current identity, so I have to go to the police department. But before I could step into the police department, I was dragged into an alley with a sack over my head. The person pushed me out of the wheelchair from behind. My face smashed straight into the ground, and my nose bled. The moment those hands touched me, I knew it was cousin, because he had pushed me into the swimming pool, toilet, and garbage dump countless times in school. Cousin, you've been doing pretty well these past few years. TSK, these legs are really ruined. Liam smiled and lifted the sack from my face. Then he raised his foot and stomped hard on my legs. I wiped the blood from my face. Get away from me. Yo, I haven't cleaned you up in a while. Have you forgotten who's the boss? You think you're tough because you have Jane Irwin as your backer? You're just a cripple. You don't really think Jane Irwin is going to marry you, do you? Ha 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 ha. He laughed and told the whole truth. She takes care of you every day, and you're almost moved to death by this cripple, right? Little did you know, she was taking care of my medicine. You stupid pig, you deserve to be played like a fiddle. Liam slapped me 5 times and laughed heartily when he saw me beaten senseless. He forced me to kneel, unzipped his pants and peed on my face. Wash your face and wake up. Does urine taste good? How is it? Does it bring back memories of your school days? After shaking off the last drop of urine, he lifted his clothes and pointed to the surgical scar and said sarcastically, Hey, is your left kidney gone? Guess where your kidney is. Oh, right, your blood is also very fresh. After saying that, he raised his foot and heavily crushed the stitches on my abdomen and pinched the needle hole on my arm where blood was drawn. The abdominal wound gradually burst open, and I screamed in pain. Screaming so wildly? If you scream again, I'll call Old Man Peterson from hometown. Cousin, have you forgotten that every time you were disobedient as a child, I would call Old Man Peterson to your house, and you would be honest the next day? Childhood nightmares flew back into my memory, and I was so frightened that I could hardly breathe and could only gasp for air on the ground. Liam pulled down my pants. I heard that if something touches it for a long time, it will take shape. Is that true? I want to see what shape Old Man Peterson is. Get out! I roared and punched him in the face with all my strength. After all, I've been a cop for so many years. Even if my legs are ruined, my arm strength is still there. Liam had 2 teeth broken by me. He screamed and stood up and kicked my face hard. Damn your mom, you dare hit me? After kicking me until my face was bruised and swollen, and all my teeth were broken, he still wasn't satisfied. He tore open the stitches on my abdomen and poured all the wine from the bottle into it. The burning sensation almost made me faint. Stop hitting him. Jane Irwin and your aunt are here. Uncle, who was keeping watch on the side, ran over and pulled cousin away. He grabbed a handful of blood on my abdomen and smeared it on his face, then blocked my mouth and covered me with a huge burlap sack. The two screamed and lay on the ground. So, the moment Jane, Erwin, and Mom came in, they saw them in this miserable state. Liam pretended to be weak. I don't know where a beggar came from. Even though I gave him all the money I had on me, he still wanted to beat me to death. It hurts. Jane, Erwin hugged him. Seeing his mouth full of blood and broken teeth, she was so remorseful that she burst into tears. Liam, it's all my fault. I didn't take good care of you. I'll get Joe Anson to give blood right now. She called me several times but couldn't get through because my phone had just been kicked to pieces by Liam in my pants pocket. Jane, Erwin was furious. Useless thing, can't find him at a critical moment. So damn useless. Mom picked up an empty wine bottle from the corner and smashed it on my body, then kicked my abdomen wildly. Beast, it's you. You actually dared to touch my N. F you. It's not enough that you took the money, you still want to hit him. Your cheap life can't even pay for the blood he lost. Do you have the nerve to live in this world? Why don't you go die? Jane, Erwin stared at me coldly, her voice frighteningly cold. Aunt, why bother fighting him? Just throw him into the Northside dog kennels. The Northside dog kennels housed more than 30 large dogs waiting to be euthanized, each of them vicious. If I were thrown in, I would be eaten until there wasn't even bone dust left. I struggled with all my might, trying to make a sound, but Jane, Erwin tied me directly to the back of the car and dragged me all the way to the north side. After being dragged by the car for half an hour, the skin all over my body was ulcerated, and I no longer had the strength to resist. You can only blame yourself for touching Liam. He's my bottom line. I feel sorry for him even if he loses a strand of hair, but you actually dared to break 2 of his teeth. Jane, Erwin threw me into the dog cage. The vicious dogs quickly pounced on me and bit my face, and a tearing pain came from my cheeks. Then they roared and pounced on me. My miserable screams were extremely eerie in the night. Die, beggar, you deserve this. Jane, Erwin smiled coldly and turned to leave. But suddenly she tripped over something. She looked down and saw it was a hospital urine bag. The words Joe Anson were clearly written in the center of the urine bag. Before completely passing out, I heard her terrified scream, "Joe Anson?" There were 2 days left until the wedding. Seeing me wake up, Jane, Erwin breathed a sigh of relief, and then immediately grabbed me and questioned me, without even asking about my health. Why did you want to harm your cousin? Joe Anson, when did your heart become so vicious? Do you know that you broke 2 of his teeth? And you also hurt his eyes. I pointed to the mirror, indicating that she should look at my inhuman appearance. I smiled in despair. Liam only broke 2 teeth, and his eyeballs are a little congested, but my face and limbs have been completely ruined by dogs. Look at all the bandages on my body, all the broken teeth in my mouth. Can my eyeballs still see? A look of heartache flashed in Jane Erwin's eyes, but she still bit her lip. She squatted down and took my hand. I know you've been unloved since you were a child and you're jealous of your cousin, but you can't commit a crime. Do you want me to marry someone who's going to jail? And our wedding is coming up. What do you look like with all the bandages on your body? Never mind. Let's not talk about this. Recently, there have been some rumors about your cousin on the internet, saying that he bullied you. He's back in the country now and is preparing to develop as an actor. He absolutely can't have any negative news, and I don't want your relationship with your family to be so strained after we get married. After all, we're all family. So there are 2 days left until the wedding, and I hope you can clarify to the media today that everything was your own doing. Tomorrow, you'll donate the cornea of your right eye to compensate your cousin. Your mom doesn't have high expectations for you. Just kneel in front of your cousin for 12 hours. If you do these things, they will definitely forgive you completely. After saying that, she took out the suit from her bag and handed it to me. It's settled then. If you do these 3 things, I'll marry you without any resentment. She smiled slyly. The wedding venue is decorated very grandly. It will definitely be unforgettable for you. I touched the rough suit in my hand, which wasn't even a tenth as luxurious as Liam's, and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Several bodyguards dragged me out of bed without saying a word. We'll be following you for the next 2 days. Let's go to the media conference first. Jane Irwin and the others shoved me roughly into the car. The uns that had been torn and stitched up by the dogs burst open again, and I trembled in pain. At the media conference, I was forced to admit that I had orchestrated everything, and countless listeners threw rotten eggs and rotten vegetables at me, and there were countless insults to me on the internet. Jane Irwin was very satisfied with the crowd's reaction, and kicked me in the back of the knee. I plopped down on my knees. Joe, bear with it. Kneeling shows sincerity in your apology. I smiled in despair. It's okay, my legs have been ruined anyway. I have no feeling. Jane Irwin was stunned for a moment. She clenched her fists and stopped looking at me, stepping aside, allowing dozens of Cousins fans to rush onto the stage and punch, kick, and tear off my urine bag and mock me. After the media conference, she immediately dragged me back to the hospital and removed the cornea of my right eye. The next day, she made me kneel in front of Cousin's house in the pouring rain for 12 hours. By the eve of the wedding, I had been completely tortured beyond recognition, and I was completely distracted and looked like an idiot. But Jane Irwin was holding an exquisite wedding dress and was extremely excited. Tomorrow is the wedding. I'm so looking forward to it. My eyes met Professor Bell's through the window, who had turned off the engine and parked the Cadillac downstairs. Heh, I'm also looking forward to it. The wedding began in a grand manner. Petals fell from the sky, and the guests were seated. Jane Irwin and Liam exchanged wedding rings and kissed for 5 full minutes. After laying out the plan for so many years, I can finally shatter my beautiful dreams. She wanted to mock me, but couldn't find my figure in the audience. She signaled the bodyguard to find me, and then pretended to be nonchalant and continued the wedding process. After toasting, she quickly found the bodyguard and asked about my whereabouts. Several people looked at each other, not daring to speak. Jane Irwin kicked one of them to the ground, stomping on his finger bones, her expression gloomy. Are you still not going to say it? The others knelt down and trembled. Mr. Joe, after cutting his wrists, he jumped into the sea and died. The wedding was held in a seaside hotel. Early this morning, the door to my room was slammed open, and Liam was wearing an expensive suit, chuckling evilly. Cousin, I've brought people to do some pre-wedding pranks. Look who's here. He stepped aside. Behind him were Old Man Peterson and a dozen men in groomsmen suits. At his command, everyone rushed up and tore off my clothes. I screamed for help, calling Jane Irwin's name at the door, but she just asked lightly what Cousin was shouting about. Liam kissed her. My friend is joking with him, playing with him. Who knew he would be so temperamental? Jane Irwin and Mom rolled their eyes at the same time. What a petty person. Doesn't have a man's guts. Let's go. Let him yell here, trying to win sympathy. Who's going to pay attention to him? The door was locked tightly. I completely collapsed, and the fingernails of my fingers that were clutching the floor were all turned over, and blood was flowing. Old Man Peterson rubbed his hands lewdly, and moved towards me little by little, followed by the dozen men in groomsmen suits. I started shaking like crazy, knocking my head heavily on the ground one by one like I did when I was a child, begging Old Man Peterson to let me go. But they laughed even more wantonly. In a panic, I grabbed a fruit knife from the table with red eyes and slashed my arteries, then pointed the knife at them, my voice trembling. Don't come over, don't force me. But because my arms had been bitten by dogs yesterday, I was shaking so badly that I couldn't even hold the knife steady, and Old Man Peterson easily grabbed the knife with a happy look. Joe's second son, after all these years, why is your temper still so quick? Come on, Uncle, we'll see if you've grown taller after all these years. Ha 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 ha. He walked over with a wicked smile, his eyes full of gleam. He raised his hand and grabbed me, his smile extremely strange. Ha 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 ha, you can't run away. I struggled frantically, and finally seized the opportunity to push him away with all my strength, and jumped out of the window. Ah! Impossible! You're lying to me. Joe Anson cherishes his life so much, how could he commit suicide? Jane Irwin couldn't believe it. She pushed away the bodyguard and stumbled towards my room. Pushing open the door to the room, there was chaos everywhere, and a large amount of blood extended all the way from the ground to the window. She recognized it as arterial blood at a glance, and judging from the amount of blood, I wasn't acting, I really wanted to die. Jane Irwin staggered to the window and looked down. There was only a large pool of blood on the rocks below. The bodyguard lowered their heads. Mr. Joe jumped down and fell on the rocks and was washed away by the sea. We all saw it. Jane Irwin held onto the windowsill, staring at the pool of blood, her chest heaving violently. It was as if a string in her head had snapped. She didn't believe I was really dead, and she didn't dare believe I was really dead. Jane Irwin's eyes were red and she was trembling terribly. Impossible, he can't be dead. Find him, I want to see him alive, I want to see his dead body. The bodyguard retreated, and she was about to go out to find me when Mom, Uncle, and Cousin came in. Mom was startled by the blood in the room. Cousin and Uncle exchanged glances and pretended to be horrified. They quickly walked to Jane Irwin's side. Why is there so much blood? Jane, are you hurt? Jane Irwin took in his expression and looked at him deeply, and said lightly, no, this is Joe Anson's blood. He jumped into the sea and died. Cousin covered his mouth in disbelief and shed a few tears. Ah? Mom was stunned for a.m. Omened and closed her eyes in pain. He was guilty anyway. Death is a relief. Uncle rubbed his hands and said with a smile, everyone has their own destiny, life and death are in the hands of God. What can we do if he wants to die? Let's go. The wedding isn't over yet. Let's go drink. Those wines are so expensive. They smell so good that people get dizzy. Jane Irwin's eyes were dark, and she didn't say anything else. The search and rescue team searched the entire sea area for a month but couldn't find my body, only a tattered urine bag. He must have been eaten by fish. I'm sorry for your loss. Jane Irwin couldn't believe this fact. She took the urine bag, knelt on the ground with red eyes, grabbed the search and rescue team members' pants and begged, have you searched the surrounding residents? He might know that I used the wedding to trick him and hid in someone else's house in a fit of anger. The search and rescue team members shook their heads and turned to leave. Jane Irwin collapsed to the ground, holding my urine bag and crying loudly. It wasn't until I died that she realized she had fallen in love with me. She dragged her exhausted body back home. Cousin and Uncle didn't seem to care about my death at all, and were still happily celebrating their birthday, which was very different from how they usually cared for me. So she began to suspect everything and secretly sent people to investigate. She found my hometown, my high school, and my middle school, and investigated my network of relationships. As a result, she found that I didn't have any friends, which was not what Cousin said, attracting bees and butterflies, dating everywhere. Finally, she found my homeroom teacher. Ah, Joe Anson was a good kid, smart as a whip, but fate dealt him a cruel hand. His mom left him with his uncle when he was little, but everyone in town knew what kind of a monster Uncle Porter was. He never gave Joe Anson food or clothes, forcing him to earn his own keep. He had to go to school every day and work outside at night, so naturally, his grades tanked. Liam's son isn't any better. I was walking home from work one winter evening, passing the alley behind the school, when I saw him strip Joe Anson naked and pour boiling water all over him, then douse him with cold water. I chased Liam's son and his cronies away and wanted to take him to the police department, but he just shook his head, said it was no use, and turned and left. Ah, so you're Joe Anson's wife? Give him my best. Jane Irwin staggered out of the homeroom teacher's house, shaking violently. She wandered aimlessly around my school twice, and then she saw someone lurking in the shadows of a streetlight, getting handsy. "Get out of here! Call the police department!" She rushed up and knocked the person to the ground, only to find it was Old Man Peterson. Old Man Peterson had this kind of kink? He's even part of the pre-wedding pranks. Jane Irwin remembered the ravaged state of my lower body, and a terrifying thought occurred to her. She frantically slammed Old Man Peterson's face, forcing him to tell the truth. Old Man Peterson, half dead from the beating, immediately confessed everything. "It was the eldest son of the Porters who told me to do it. It's not my fault." Jane Irwin kicked him away, chuckling softly at first, then laughing louder and louder, tears streaming down her face. So I had been innocent all along. At the same time, bodyguard hurried over. "Mr. Porter, the surveillance footage from the hotel room has been recovered." They handed the video to Jane Irwin, and everything was played out clearly. After the video ended, the bodyguard were so scared that they didn't dare breathe loudly, kneeling on the ground. Jane Irwin's chest heaved violently, and she could barely breathe, gasping for air. The camera that was supposed to monitor me had become my death memoir. "How dare you do this to him? I want you all to die with him." Her EYs were bloodshot as she strangled Old Man Peterson's neck, not letting go no matter how hard he struggled. Old Man Peterson gradually lost his breath, but Jane Irwin was still not appeased. She dragged the body back to the basement of her house. Under the scalpel of a top medical expert, Old Man Peterson was reduced to neatly arranged muscle tissue blocks and stored in the freezer. Jane Irwin found Mom and told her the whole truth, along with the video. Mom collapsed to the ground, in disbelief, and said blankly, "That's impossible. He was always promiscuous, at the bottom of his class, and constantly stealing things from his classmates." Jane Irwin sneered, "Was that what Liam and Liam told you? You believe everything they say, and then you come and tell me these things?" "Yes, how could a well-behaved child suddenly change after being sent to the Porter's house?" Mom was stunned, her face full of confusion. Finally, she threw herself on the ground and cried hysterically, slapping herself. "Joe Anson, I'm sorry. It's Mom's fault. Mom wronged you." Jane Irwin's eyes were bloodshot as she threw a knife in front of her. "Do it yourself. I will deal with Liam and Liam one by one, and I won't let myself off either. We are all guilty. We will all die with Joe Anson. And those classmates who bullied him, those groomsmen, I won't let any of them off." "Okay." Mom picked up the knife with a mournful expression, her hands trembling, and with gritted teeth, she plunged the knife into her neck, and blood splattered. Liam and Liam woke up to find themselves chained by the ankles in the basement. In front of them were more than a dozen vicious dogs, eager and with glowing eyes, along with an operating table, a freezer, and blood all over the floor. Jane Irwin played with a scalpel, sitting on the steps. Liam was sweating profusely, trying to appear calm. "Jane Irwin, what are you doing? Stop fooling around and untie me, my hands hurt." Liam was so scared that he wet himself. "Daughter-in-law, what are you doing?" Jane Irwin suddenly became furious. She rushed over and stabbed Liam in the thigh, twisting the knife. "Ah! I am Joe Anson's bride." Liam screamed miserably. Jane Irwin stuffed a cloth into his mouth, dragged him onto the operating table, and crippled both his legs and gouged out his eyes. Liam was thrown onto the street to beg, incoherent, muttering only "let me go." Liam, on the other hand, was brutally tortured by beggars she had hired for 10 days and nights, until his intestines were spilling out. Liam kneeling on the ground, clutching her pants leg, trembling and screaming, begging her to let him go. Jane Irwin smiled. "When Joe Anson begged you to let him go when he was so young, did you show him any mercy?" Jane Irwin removed my kidney from his body and preserved it in formalin. So much blood. Help. Throughout the surgery, she didn't give Liam any anesthesia, and she didn't stitch up the wound afterward. All the dogs were agitated by the smell of blood. Enjoy. Ah. The dogs were unleashed, barking and swarming forward. Liam's screams gradually faded. Jane Irwin stared at my kidney, her smile tender. Joanson, I've finally found a part of you. Finally, the dozen or so groomsmen and classmates who had wronged me with Liam, as well as those bodyguard, were all locked in the basement by Jane Irwin. She built a water dungeon, torturing them every day, but not allowing them to die, keeping them barely alive. Joe Anson, I've avenged you. When will you come back and see me? For the next 10 years, I took care of my health, dedicating myself to studying criminal psychology and improving my profiling skills. After graduating, Professor Bell led our group back to the United States, where countless fans obsessed with criminal investigation came to greet us. As I sat in my wheelchair, holding flowers and taking photos with everyone, I made eye contact with a gaunt figure. In an instant, I felt a surge of emotions in my heart. But when I wanted to take a closer look, the person had disappeared. As soon as we arrived at the police station, we started working, staying up for nearly half a month, and finally solved a murder case. On the way home from the celebration party, I was stopped. The person was dressed in black, standing in the shadows, but I recognized her at a glance. Jane Irwin. She took off her hood and stepped out of the darkness. Seeing me healthy, her eyes immediately turned red. Wringing her hands, she said cautiously, "Joe Anson, you're really not dead." I looked at her coldly, saying nothing. Jane Irwin hurriedly explained in a low voice, "I recovered your phone and found your call records with Professor Bell. Following the clues, I discovered that you might have gone to America. Joe Anson, I went to America to look for you many times, but it was heavily guarded there, and I couldn't get in." I sneered, "Yes, thank goodness it was heavily guarded, or I might have died at your hands again." Jane Irwin was stunned, as if struck by lightning, and couldn't utter a word despite opening her mouth several times. Crying, she kneeling down, grabbing my pants leg, and handing me the chicken soup. "Joe Anson, I know I was wrong. Can you forgive me just once? I've waited for you for 10 years. I was really, really wrong. They deceived me. You used to love my chicken soup." Without hesitation, I snatched the coffee pot and smashed it on the ground. "Drink your soup, get healthy, and become medicine for Liam?" Jane Irwin collapsed to the ground, looking distressed. I issued my final command, "Get out. There's no way I can forgive you. You took my kidney, crippled my legs, and gouged out an eye. You think a simple apology is enough for me to forgive you? I'm telling you, it's impossible. Get away. Get out of my life." I turned my wheelchair around and left, without looking back. Jane Irwin kneeling there and cried for a long time, until her tears ran dry. She lay on the ground, lapping up the chicken soup with the dirt, bit by bit. Jane Irwin came to the police department to find me several times, but I refused to see her. She kneeling in front of the police station every day. After kneeling for half a month and realizing it was useless, she began to cut out her own kidney, gouge out one of her eyes, and even sever all the nerves in her legs, but it still didn't work. I still didn't see her. Through the window, I saw her smile in despair, push herself up with her hands, and crawl away. After that, I never saw her again. At the same time, more and more bodies began appearing in the city. At first, it was a bag of frozen chopped meat cut into 2,000 pieces. Then, there were dog corpses stuffed with human bones, and limbs scattered everywhere. There were nearly 30 victims, and the deaths had occurred a long time ago, 8 or 9 years. All the methods pointed to one person. The case instantly caused a national sensation, and everyone was panicking. Our profiling unit began working overtime to speed up the investigation. The killer has high psychological stability and precise cuts, most likely a doctor. The methods are cruel and targeted, indicating revenge. About 5 feet 6 inches thin. These clues made it hard for me not to think of Jane Irwin. My hand moved quickly across the paper, and I drew the face of the killer. It was indeed Jane Irwin. On the day she was arrested by the police, she sat in the basement, smiling in relief. She thought that if she was arrested and sent to prison, she would be able to see me, but I still refused to see her. She screamed and shouted in the prison, crying and begging to see me, even alarming Professor Bell. I had to go see her one last time. She was wearing handcuffs, covered in sores, lying on the ground. Infested with maggots, almost a pile of rotten flesh. Seeing me, she immediately stopped yelling, smoothed her hair, smiled with red eyes, and carefully handed me the wedding ring in her hand. "Joe Anson, are you still willing?" I took the ring and threw it out the window. She was stunned, and after a moment, she laughed distractedly. Okay. Jane Irwin was sentenced to death by firing squad. Hearing this news, I finally smiled for the first time in a long time. The rest of my life will be full of sunshine.